Anyone got any questions? Are there any questions? Got to get it back.
So I can't remember your name, this guy, Matt Corskay.
Oh, me, John.
We're moving towards Gaussian splatting next, so you can take it off as much, because you're stuck on a Matterport platform.
So my main area is stone tools, making stone tools. I don't understand any of that. So I've had to raise my game to get my head around digital scanning, which I've managed to do, speak to loads of curators about what they want, and introduce them to the potential of the technology. But that's the level I'm at. I'm not. I've innovated, I suppose, with what I've got, but it's not my main area, so I don't know the answer to that question. Well, yeah, no, Keith sorted me out with loads of stuff up to now, so.
Don't give me jobs to do. I will do them. No, I think the answer to the question, Gaussian splatting, for those that don't know, I'm sort of learning about that. It's basically when you can take a series of images and create some sort of fly-through with AI, as far as I'm aware. So you can create these beautiful visuals. There's a bit of a visual trope at the moment, so there's a bit of a method using command line and other tools as well. So you can create these interesting things, particularly around drone images is really interesting as well. So maybe that'll be more easy to use in the future without the programming, or maybe get a clever person to help you out doing that as well.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean now. And you sort of think about the way you want people to explore the space before you scan it. So you're making sure you've got all that data, but they've still got the freedom to explore it in the way they want, so it's not in an order that you decide. Whereas a fly-through kind of thing would give you more control, wouldn't it, of what they're exposed to and in what order, I suppose.
No, exactly. You scan the place with a Gaussian, with a normal camera, your phone or something. You build a Gaussian splat entity from it. Then if you pull that into a games engine, then people just wander around it as they would with Matterport.
All right.
The main thing I was saying is that you're kind of wedded to the Matterport platform there.
Yeah.
It's like colonised your content, isn't it?
Yeah, they own it. I think they own the content,
so
actually.
You colonise it and get it into, games engine.
Yeah, so I get you.
Brilliant. Any other questions, anyone?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question for Iris around the direction that you built.
Can you tell us what you were doing and interested in? So I get a bit
I
of
work in AI as well.
There you go.
So I'm curious about the way that you build a model and the solutions. So did you look at the data that you had available and then kind of just think about the solutions you could get from it, or did you work backwards from having a solution in mind and then looking at the data that you had instead?
When I first started out, it was very much just I wanted to build this thing. So and then I did find out some partnerships with people that had already created manual databases of archaeological sites. But the issue with that in archaeology is that the databases have been gathered over the last 100 years. So some sites don't appear on the map anymore. So they were like, we've got this wealth of data, and then it's like, oh, well, actually, if I want to train my AI, it has to be like curated, because some archaeological sites might have been found with just satellite imagery, like looking at the crop marks, but then they might not appear on the LiDAR data. So I did find that the data sets that I was given were often not perfect, garbage in, garbage out. So if it's been trained on a flat landscape, it will also find flat landscape and then say, hey, I found you another archaeological site. It's like, well, no, not really. And that's still the case today. So we are still working with experts and having to tell them, we really want for you to understand why the AI you want the AI to find this archaeological site. So making sure that the boundaries are drawn at a certain location, because in archaeology, you often ask like, where is the boundary of a site? Like an enclosure, is the boundary of a site at the edges of that enclosure where the banks maybe go down or the ditches go down, or is it much further out where often archaeologists would draw it because the landscape actually continues in different areas. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of communication between the archaeologist and then the AI specialist on like how the data needs to be created. Don't know if that helps or yeah.
I have a question. Just really interesting to see some of the other projects around the human zoo or zoology when you're talking about reframing history and experience. when you think about, when we talk a lot about the behaviour we now exert in virtual environments, around harassment, about ethics, how we interact with each other. There's some really interesting worlds which give you, as an avatar, a bubble, which means no one can actually come and touch you unless you allow them into a personal space. So they build into their avatars a sort of buffer. So I was really interested to see the work that you might engage with as Metaport around reframing histories of the purpose of objects that you can touch and learn new ideas, and equally with later on that you build a fireplace almost, that you create a real environment within the virtual terrain. So you really are mix mediating, if that's a word, both your real experience where you are, that reframes who you are approaching the past and what you take back with you, because that becomes today's history for you. And I just wondered how that sort of frames your practice, that when you learn these things, do you go back into your new work with this new insight in producing work, bringing those new frames of behaviour into the new work?
Yeah, I think you touched a very good point there, which is that when we're talking, especially with Indigenous communities, we're not talking about the past, we're talking also about the present. So it is about not how we see them, but also how they want to show themselves. In that case also, like what kind of layers of knowledge they want to share with, or which layers they don't want to share. So it's a very interesting dialogue, but at the end, I think it highlights the need that they need to take ownership of these tools, and they need to use it for all the means of expression. So you're completely right. There was a conference, CAA, is the Computer Applications and Quantitative Methods in Archaeology, and there was a panel about Indigenous archaeology, and there was no representatives of Indigenous people in any of the panels, in any of the. So that is very eloquent, because it's like, well, we are working with them now, but the aim for us is that they take ownership of their narratives and how they want to show.
But there's agency around their story as well, isn't it? Yeah, great.
I've been reading about a book, and it's comparing museums to department stores, both full of things. But what it's coming to is that actually department stores are more keen to get people into them, to move around and touch things, to get that experience, whereas museums have always had people at a distance from the objects. So actually digital stuff like this, where people are still at a distance, fits quite well, because curators, rightly or wrongly, and obviously it's a generalisation, but they do have, I suppose, responsibilities to protect the materials and also what narratives are constructed. And so it's almost like a negotiation with what is the public allowed to do with this material that's in the museums, and there's still a sort of control of that. But
I guess the technology can open that up a bit more, isn't it?
yeah, and it depends on the curator, it depends on the collections, but I think this idea of digital technology is almost like in the middle. It allows curators to still have some control, but it does allow people more access to more space and potentially more of the objects. So it's perhaps a stepping stone in a particular direction.
Well, it's 2 minutes to 8. I would invite people to maybe discuss last questions with our speakers individually, perhaps as we move through, grab another last a slice or a drink, so you can speak to them individually. Quick hands up, have you enjoyed this evening? Oh, look at that. That's great, because certainly Keith and I would love to see you again at our next venue. We're also very, very open to suggestions for themes and ideas to bring in, very open. I also really like to thank Caroline, who today brought everything together and showing her work as well. And yeah, big thanks for our speakers to share your work and your considerations, and I'm sure just by the response you got this evening. You can see it stimulated lots of debate, and we'll send out your contact details, just check if that's all right, so you can actually get back to everyone for your individual projects and ideas. So huge thanks for coming on a very cold, rainy day, and we really look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
And film's going to be on, so put a film on if you want to
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
it.
put the film on now
Yeah.
while you sort of say your
We'll
goodbyes.
get some more drinks,
Yeah.
there's loads of drinks, take some pizza home as well,
Yeah.
so it's going to go in a bit.
Just get
Wrap it up, there's some good things.